Captain Jake Morrison stood at the front window of his ship. The stars looked the same as always, quiet, peaceful. He had been looking at space for 15 years, but it still made him feel small. His ship, the UES Defender, was the best ship humans had ever built. It could travel faster than light and carry 300 people. But out here, surrounded by endless darkness, it felt like a tiny dot. Jake was drinking his morning coffee when the radio started making noise. At first, it sounded like static, the kind of noise that came from old machines or broken equipment. But then Lisa Park, the woman who studied alien languages, ran onto the bridge. Her face was white with shock. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said. Her hands were shaking as she worked with the radio equipment. "This is not human." Jake put down his coffee cup. In all the years humans had been traveling in space, they had never found anyone else. They had found empty planets. They had found rocks and gas and ice, but no other people. No other life that could talk or think or build things. The noise from the radio got clearer. Lisa turned some dials and pressed some buttons, then they heard it. A voice, weak and far away, but definitely a voice, and it was speaking words they could almost understand. "Please, anyone who can hear this. We are dying." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. This was it. This was the moment every space captain had dreamed about. First contact with aliens. But the voice sounded so sad, so desperate. "The Vorthak have come," the voice continued. "Our worlds burn. We cannot fight them anymore. Please, if anyone is listening, help us. We are the Zilani. We have been sending this message for many days. Soon we will be gone." Lisa was typing on her computer as fast as she could. Numbers and symbols filled her screen. She was trying to figure out where the message was coming from. "It's from the Kepler 442 system," she said. "That's about 3 months away if we push the engines hard." Jake picked up his communication device. He needed to call Admiral Charles Stone back on Earth. This was too big for him to decide alone. The call took 20 minutes to reach Earth and 20 minutes for the answer to come back. Jake spent that time listening to more of the alien message. Lisa had cleaned up the sound and now they could hear more details. The aliens called themselves the Zilani. They had been fighting something called the Vorthak for many years. But they were losing. Their planets were being destroyed one by one. When Admiral Stone's voice finally came through the speakers, he sounded tired. "Jake, are you sure about this? Are you absolutely sure this is real?" "Yes, sir. Lisa has checked everything twice. This is definitely an alien signal, and they're asking for help." There was a long pause. Jake could picture the Admiral sitting in his office on Earth, looking out at the blue sky and green trees, trying to decide what to do about problems happening in the darkness between the stars. "Jake, I'm going to send you more ships, 12 ships total. Your job is to go to this Kepler system and see what's happening. If you can help these Zilani people, do it. But be careful. We don't know anything about this Vorthak enemy they're talking about." "What if the Vorthak are dangerous to us too?" Jake asked. "Then you get our people out of there and come home fast." "But Jake, if there really are aliens out there who need help and we can give it, then we should try. It's the right thing to do." Over the next few days, more ships arrived. Jake watched them appear one by one, dropping out of hyperspace near his ship. Big ships and small ships, fast ships and strong ships. The captains were people he had worked with before. Amy Foster, who was brave and smart. Ryan Clark, who knew more about fighting than anyone. Helen Gray, who could fix anything and never gave up. They met in the conference room of Jake's ship. The table was round and everyone could see everyone else. Jake stood up and activated the big screen. It showed a map of local space with Earth in the center and the Kepler system marked with a red dot. "We're going to help," he said. "These Zilani people are in trouble and they asked for help. That's all we need to know." Amy Foster raised her hand. "What if it's a trap? What if these Vorthak are trying to trick us?" Ryan Clark shook his head. "I've been listening to the messages. The fear in those voices is real. Nobody can fake that kind of terror." Helen Gray was looking at technical data on her tablet. "Their technology is different from ours, but not too different. If we're careful, we should be able to help them. Lisa Park had been quiet, but now she spoke up. I've learned more of their language. The Zalani are peaceful people. They're farmers, and artists and builders. They never hurt anyone. But these Vorthak are different. The Zalani described them as monsters who eat planets. Jake looked around the table. These were good people, brave people, people who had signed up to explore space and find new things. Now they had found something new, and it needed their help. We leave in 6 hours, Jake said. Everyone check your ships and your crews. This might be dangerous, but it's also the most important thing any of us will ever do. Somewhere out there, people are dying, and they asked us to help them. We're going to try. The 12 ships left together, jumping into hyperspace in a flash of blue light. Behind them, Earth kept spinning peacefully in its orbit. Ahead of them, in the darkness between the stars, aliens were fighting for their lives against an enemy that ate worlds. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched the stars change as his ship raced through hyperspace. He didn't know it yet, but he was leading humanity into its first war. The Zalani had asked for help, and humans were coming. But what they would find when they arrived would change everything. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were different from every other species. When someone asked for help, humans didn't just send supplies or money or good wishes. When humans heard a cry for help, they came ready to fight. The 12 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Jake Morrison looked at his screens and felt sick. This was not what he had expected to find. 3 of the 5 planets that should have been green and blue were now gray and dead. They looked like burned rocks floating in space. The other 2 planets were surrounded by massive ships that looked like nothing humans had ever built. These ships were not made of metal and plastic like human ships. They looked alive. They pulsed and moved like giant animals floating in the darkness. "My God," whispered Amy Foster from her ship. "What are those things?" Lisa Park was working at her computers trying to understand what they were seeing. "The big ships are Vorthak," she said. "I'm picking up Zalani signals from the 2 planets that are still alive, but the signals are getting weaker." Jake activated his communication system to talk to all the human ships at once. "Everyone stay calm. Ryan, what do your weapons say about those big ships?" Ryan Clark's voice came back immediately. "Captain, those ships are huge. Each one is 10 times bigger than our biggest ship, and I'm counting at least 30 of them. My computers say their weapons are very powerful, but our ships are faster," added Helen Gray. "Much faster. We can get in and out before they can catch us." Jake made his decision quickly. "We're going to try to save as many Zalani as we can. Amy, take your 3 fastest ships and go to the closer planet. Helen, you take 3 ships to the farther planet. I'll take the rest and watch for trouble. Everyone be ready to run if things go bad." The human ships split up and raced toward the 2 living planets. As they got closer, Jake could see the Vorthak ships more clearly. They were horrible. The ships had what looked like mouths and eyes. Some had long arms that reached down to the planets below. The arms were pulling things up from the surface. Buildings, trees, and worst of all, people. Amy's voice came over the radio and she sounded angry. "Jake, you need to see this. The Vorthak are taking the Zalani people. They're putting them in cages on their ships." Jake's ship got close enough to see the planet's surface. What he saw made him feel sick and angry at the same time. The Vorthak had built huge machines on the planet. The machines were eating everything. They ate the forests and the cities and the mountains. They turned everything into a gray soup that got sucked up into the alien ships. But the worst part was seeing the Zalani people. They looked almost human, but taller and thinner, with blue skin and big eyes. The Vorthak had captured thousands of them. Some were being forced to work on the machines. Others were being put into cages. Jake could see the fear on their faces even from space. "This is wrong," he said into his radio. "Everyone, new plan. We're going to get as many Zalani as we can, right now." The human ships dove down toward the planets. They were much smaller than the Vorthak ships, so at first the aliens didn't seem to notice them. Jake's ship landed near a group of Zalani who were hiding in some broken buildings. The back door of his ship opened and his crew ran out. "Come on," shouted his crew members to the Zalani. "We're here to help." The Zalani looked confused and scared. They had never seen humans before. But Lisa Park was with the rescue team, and she could speak some of their language now. "We heard your message," she told them in their own words. "We came to help you." The Zilani started crying. Not sad crying, but happy crying. They couldn't believe that someone had actually heard their call for help and come all this way to save them. Jake's ship quickly filled with Zilani refugees. Then Amy's ships landed and picked up more. Helen's team was doing the same thing on the other planet. In just 2 hours, the human ships had saved almost 50,000 Zilani people. But then the Vorthak noticed what was happening. The first sign of trouble was when Ryan Clark's voice came over the radio, sounding worried. "Captain, the big ships are moving. They're coming toward us." Jake looked up and saw the massive Vorthak ships turning in space. They moved slowly, like giant sea creatures, but there were so many of them, and they were all heading for the human ships. "Everyone back to space now," Jake ordered. The human ships took off from the planets just as the Vorthak ships started shooting. The alien weapons were beams of red light that turned everything they touched into ash. One beam hit near Jake's ship and melted a mountain. Amy Foster was the last captain to leave the first planet. Her ship was full of Zilani children when a Vorthak weapon hit her. "I'm losing power," she reported. "Engine is damaged." "Helen, go help Amy," Jake ordered. "Everyone else form up and get ready to fight." The human ships were fast, but the Vorthak ships were everywhere. Helen Gray got to Amy's damaged ship just as 3 Vorthak vessels surrounded them. Helen's ship had the biggest guns of all the human ships. "Get away from her," Helen shouted, and her ship started shooting. Human weapons were different from anything the Vorthak had seen before. Instead of slow energy beams, human ships shot fast projectiles and missiles. Helen's guns tore holes in the side of one Vorthak ship and green liquid poured out into space. But there were too many Vorthak ships. One of them grabbed Helen's ship with a long arm and started crushing it. Jake could hear Helen and her crew shouting over the radio, but there was nothing he could do to help. The Vorthak ship squeezed until Helen's ship exploded. Captain Helen Gray and all 200 people on her ship were gone. "Everyone jump to hyperspace," Jake ordered. "We have to get these refugees to safety." The remaining 11 human ships escaped into hyperspace, carrying their precious cargo of Zilani refugees. But as they raced back toward Earth, Lisa Park made a terrible discovery. She was talking to the Zilani leader, a tall alien named Prime Kethvar. He was trying to thank the humans for saving his people, but Lisa noticed he looked very worried. "What's wrong?" she asked him. "The Vorthak," he said in his broken human language. "They track our signals, they follow our messages. Anyone who tries to help us, the Vorthak find them too." Lisa felt her blood turn cold. "You mean they can track our ships?" "Yes. They know where you come from now. They will follow you home." Lisa ran to Jake's bridge and told him what she had learned. Jake's face went white. He immediately called Admiral Stone on Earth. "Admiral, we have a problem. A big problem. We saved 50,000 aliens, but now the aliens who are trying to kill them know where Earth is. They're coming for us." There was a long pause before Admiral Stone answered. "How long do we have?" Jake looked at his navigation computer. "The Vorthak ships are slower than ours, but not by much. I'd say 3 months, maybe 4. Jake, get those refugees to safety and get back here as fast as you can. We need to prepare for war." As Jake's ship raced through hyperspace toward Earth, he thought about what they had seen. The Vorthak weren't just enemies. They were monsters. They destroyed everything they touched and enslaved anyone who survived. Now they were coming for Earth. The Zilani had asked for help, and humans had answered. But in saving 50,000 aliens, they had doomed their own planet to attack. The question now was whether humanity could survive what was coming for them. Jake looked at the Zilani refugees in his ship. They were grateful and happy to be alive. They didn't know that their rescue had probably started the first war between humans and aliens. But Jake was starting to understand something important. Sometimes helping others meant you had to be ready to fight for them, too. Earth was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The news hit Earth like a punch in the stomach. Admiral Charles Stone stood in the big meeting room in Washington, D.C., looking at faces filled with fear and anger. Around the table sat the most important people on Earth: presidents, generals, scientists, and business leaders. They had all come to decide what to do about the aliens that were coming to destroy them. "How many ships are coming?" asked President Maria Santos. Captain Jake Morrison, who had just returned from the rescue mission, looked tired and sad. "At least 300 ships, ma'am. Each one bigger than anything we have. They'll be here in less than 3 months." The room erupted in worried voices. Some people wanted to evacuate Earth immediately. Others wanted to try talking to the Vorthak. A few suggested hiding and hoping the aliens would go away. "Quiet!" Admiral Stone shouted. "Let's hear what Dr. Park learned from the refugees." Lisa. Park stood up with her computer tablet. She had spent weeks talking to the Zilani refugees, learning everything she could about their enemy. "The Vorthak don't negotiate," she said. "They don't take prisoners except to make them slaves. In the last 1,000 years, they have destroyed 43 different species completely. Every planet they visit becomes dead rock. Every person they capture either dies or gets put to work building more ships for them." An old general named Frank Turner slammed his fist on the table. "Then we fight them." "With what?" asked Senator Bob Williams. "You heard Morrison. They have 300 ships. We have maybe 50 that can fight in space." "Then we build more," said General Turner. "We turn every factory on Earth into a weapons factory. We turn every ship into a warship." Jake Morrison stood up. Everyone looked at him. He was the only person in the room who had actually seen the Vorthak ships and survived. "General Turner is right, but not completely," Jake said. "We can't just defend Earth and hope to win. The Vorthak are too strong. But I have an idea. What if we don't just wait for them to come to us? What if we take the fight to them?" Admiral Stone leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "While their main fleet is attacking Earth, we send a strike force to attack their homeworlds. The Zilani told us where the Vorthak come from. If we can destroy their bases while their ships are here, we cut off their supplies and reinforcements." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Colonel Danny Wright, who commanded the Space Marines, started nodding slowly. "It could work," he said. "But it would be dangerous. Very dangerous. The ships that go on this mission might not come back." "I'll lead it," Jake said immediately. Admiral Stone shook his head. "Jake, you've done enough. You brought us this information. Let someone else take the risk." "No, sir," Jake said firmly. "I've seen what these monsters do. I've seen the fear in the Zilani's eyes. If there's a chance to stop the Vorthak forever, I want to be part of it." President Santos looked around the room. "All in favor of Colonel Wright's plan?" she asked. Every hand went up. The next 3 months were like nothing Earth had ever seen before. Every factory that used to make cars started making spaceships. Every factory that used to make computers started making weapons. People worked day and night, 7 days a week. Dr. Karen White, who designed weapons for the military, created new types of missiles that could hurt the Vorthak's living ships. The Zilani refugees helped by telling the humans about Vorthak weaknesses they had discovered during their long war. Prime Kethvar, the leader of the Zilani refugees, was amazed by what he saw. "Other species tried to run when the Vorthak came," he told Lisa Park. "Some tried to hide. A few tried to fight with their old weapons. But humans are different. You turn your whole world into a weapon." Lisa smiled sadly. "When someone threatens our home, we don't hold back." The space shipyards around Mars worked faster than ever before. Old cargo ships got new armor and new guns. Passenger ships became troop carriers. Even small mining ships got weapons so they could fight. Amy Foster, who had survived the battle at Kepler 442, was put in charge of training new pilots. She worked with people who had never been in space before, teaching them how to fight the Vorthak. "Remember," she told them, "their ships are big and strong, but they're also slow. Use your speed. Hit them fast and get away before they can hit back." Ryan Clark spent his time studying the technical data they had captured from the Vorthak ships. He discovered that the alien ships needed to eat constantly to stay alive. If they could cut off the Vorthak's food supply, the ships would start to die on their own. All across Earth's solar system, hidden bases were built. On moons and asteroids, humans placed weapons and supplies. If the Vorthak thought they were attacking a helpless planet, they were in for a big surprise. But the biggest surprise was being prepared in secret. Jake Morrison was training a special team of volunteers for the strike mission. They would use humanity's fastest ships to sneak behind enemy lines while the main Vorthak fleet was attacking Earth. "This is a one-way trip," Jake told his volunteers. "We're going to hit the Vorthak where they live, but we probably won't be coming home." Nobody left. Every person who had volunteered stayed. They all understood what was at stake. The Zilani refugees were given a choice. They could go to the human colonies that were far from Earth where they would be safe, or they could stay and help fight. Most of them chose to stay. "You saved us," Prime Kethvar told Admiral Stone. "Now we help save you." As the 3 months passed, Earth changed. The blue and green planet that had always been peaceful became the center of the largest military buildup in human history. Orbital stations bristled with weapons. The moon became a giant fortress. Even the space around Earth was filled with mines and traps. When the Vorthak fleet finally appeared at the edge of the solar system, they found something they had never encountered before. Instead of a frightened species trying to run or hide, they found an entire civilization that had spent 3 months preparing for war. The Vorthak commander sent the same message he had sent to 43 other species. "Surrender now, and some of you will be allowed to live as slaves." Admiral Stone's response was broadcast across the galaxy. "We don't surrender, we don't run, we don't hide. You picked the wrong species to threaten. Come and try to take our world." The Vorthak fleet began moving toward Earth, confident that this would be like all their other conquests. They had no idea they were about to fight an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. As the alien ships approached Earth, Jake Morrison and his strike team prepared to jump to hyperspace. Their mission was simple but almost impossible. While the Vorthak were busy attacking Earth, Jake's team would destroy the alien homeworlds. "Remember," Jake told his crew, "we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species the Vorthak have destroyed. We're fighting for every species they might destroy in the future. Today, we end this." The largest space battle in human history was about to begin. But this time, humanity wouldn't be the victim. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vorthak were about to learn what it felt like to be hunted. The galaxy was about to discover that when humans heard a cry for help, they didn't just answer with rescue ships. They answered with everything they had. And they never ever gave up. The Battle of Earth began at dawn on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Charles Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Retribution, watching 300 Vorthak ships approach his home planet. The alien fleet looked like a swarm of giant insects against the black of space. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone," he said into his communication system. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every innocent species in the galaxy. Make them pay for every mile." The first surprise came when the Vorthak fleet reached Jupiter. The gas giant looked empty and peaceful, just like it always had. But when the alien ships got close, the moon Europa suddenly exploded with light. Hidden weapons bases that had been built in secret over the past 3 months opened fire all at once. 50 orbital platforms shot nuclear missiles and plasma beams at the surprised Vorthak ships. The aliens had never faced an ambush before. They were used to fighting desperate enemies who were trying to run away, not prepared enemies who were waiting to attack. 15 Vorthak ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes. Their living hulls split open and green blood poured out into space. The surviving alien ships fired back, but the human weapons platforms were small and hard to hit. Captain Amy Foster led a squadron of fast attack ships around behind the Vorthak fleet. "Remember your training," she told her pilots. "Hit them fast and get out before they can turn around." The human ships dove at the alien fleet like angry wasps, their new weapons designed specifically to hurt living tissue, cut deep wounds in the Vorthak ships. Where other species had used normal weapons that barely scratched the alien hulls, humans had created tools that could actually kill the living ships. But the real battle was happening somewhere else entirely. While the main Vorthak fleet was attacking Earth, Captain Jake Morrison and his strike team were jumping out of hyperspace deep in enemy territory. They had traveled for 3 months to reach the Vorthak home system, using secret routes the Zilani refugees had told them about. What they found there shocked them. The Vorthak home worlds were not planets at all. They were massive space stations, each one the size of a moon, floating in the darkness between stars, and they were alive just like the ships. The stations pulsed and moved and grew new parts constantly. "Those aren't bases," whispered Ryan Clark from his ship. "Those are breeding grounds. They're making new Vorthak ships." Jake counted at least 20 of the massive stations. Each one was protected by smaller ships, but nothing like the huge fleet that had gone to attack Earth. The Vorthak had sent almost all their military ships to conquer humanity, leaving their homeworlds nearly defenseless. "This is it," Jake said to his team. "This is where we end this war." The human strike force attacked the Vorthak breeding stations with everything they had. Nuclear weapons designed to kill living tissue exploded against the station's hulls. The aliens tried to fight back, but they had never imagined that anyone would attack their home territory. Jake's ship targeted the largest station, the one that seemed to be controlling all the others. As his missiles hit their target, he could see the station writhing in pain like a wounded animal. Green liquid poured from its wounds, and the lights inside it began to flicker and die. Back at Earth, Admiral Stone was fighting the battle of his life. The Vorthak fleet had recovered from the surprise at Jupiter and was pushing toward Earth with all their strength. Human ships were fighting desperately, but they were outnumbered 6-1. "Admiral, we're losing too many ships," reported Captain Foster. "We can't keep this up much longer." Stone looked at his tactical display. Earth's defenses were holding, but barely. The orbital weapons platforms around the planet were firing constantly, but the Vorthak ships kept coming. Then something impossible happened. The Vorthak ships suddenly stopped attacking. They hung in space, motionless, as if they were confused or sick. The largest Vorthak ship sent a message to Admiral Stone. "What have you done?" the alien commander asked. His voice sounded different now, weak and frightened instead of confident and threatening. Stone smiled grimly. He had just received a message from Jake Morrison's strike team. "We did what you never expected," he told the alien. "We didn't just defend ourselves. We took the fight to you." The message from Jake was short but complete. Vorthak homeworlds destroyed. All breeding stations eliminated. Enemy fleet cut off from reinforcements and command structure. The Vorthak commander's next message sounded desperate. "You have killed our mothers, our children, our future. We surrender. Please, no more killing." For 1,000 years, the Vorthak had been the hunters. Now, for the first time, they were the hunted. They had destroyed 43 species without mercy, and now they were begging for the mercy they had never shown to others. Admiral Stone thought about all the dead worlds the Vorthak had created. He thought about the Zilani refugees who had lost their homes and families. He thought about Captain Helen Gray and her crew who had died trying to save innocent people. "You want mercy?" Stone asked. "Here's our mercy. Surrender completely. Give up all your weapons. Help us rebuild the worlds you destroyed. Do this and you live. Refuse and you join the species you exterminated." The Vorthak had no choice. Cut off from their homeworlds, outnumbered and facing an enemy that had proven it could strike anywhere, they surrendered. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. The human fleet, now calling itself the Terran Defense Force, had expanded to over 500 ships. They were not conquering other worlds like the Vorthak had done. Instead, they were protecting them. Species that had been hiding from the Vorthak for centuries came out of their secret colonies. The Altarians brought their knowledge of medicine. The Proxima people shared their farming techniques. The Tau Ceti Alliance offered their engineering skills. Together they began rebuilding the worlds the Vorthak had destroyed. Prime Kethvar stood with Admiral Stone on the bridge of the new flagship, watching work crews rebuilding a dead Zilani world. Human machines were planting new forests while Zilani artists painted murals on the sides of new buildings. "Your people are strange," Kethvar said to Stone. "Most species would have used their victory to become conquerors themselves. But you use it to help others." Stone shrugged. "We didn't fight this war to become rulers. We fought it because someone asked for help, and we couldn't say no." Captain Jake Morrison had survived his suicide mission and was now leading exploration teams to find other species that might need help. Dr. Lisa Park had become the head of the new Galactic Council, helping different species learn to work together. The Fourth Act themselves were kept under close watch. The ones who cooperated were allowed to help with rebuilding projects. The ones who refused were put in prison colonies on dead worlds. They would spend the rest of their lives thinking about what they had done. But the most important change was in how the galaxy worked. For the first time in thousands of years, there was a force that protected the weak instead of preying on them. When new distress signals came from distant stars, it wasn't a call into empty space anymore. It was a call to Earth and its allies. Admiral Stone kept the original Zilani distress signal playing in his office. Whenever visitors asked about it, he would tell them the same thing. This is where it all started. One species asked for help, and another species decided that some calls for help are worth answering with everything you have. The Zilani cried for help, and humans answered with war. Now the galaxy is safe because we were willing to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. The age of human expansion had begun, but it would be remembered not for conquest, but for protection. In the end, the galaxy learned that humans were different from every other species. When someone cried for help, humans didn't just send thoughts and prayers. They didn't just offer sympathy. They came in person, ready to fight, ready to die, ready to do whatever it took to help. And they never gave up.